All right, well, happy Thursday, everybody. We're a day late here. I was fending off all the weather in Detroit trying to get home last night, so original plan was to do this last night from Detroit, fly home tonight. That didn't work out. Wound up flying home today instead, or last night instead, which was at the time we normally do this. Got derailed this afternoon, so moved this back an hour, but hey, here we are. Welcome to edition number 3 of Mosh Racing Live, our weekly live talk podcast where we talk all things NASCAR and iRacing to review kind of everything that has been going on. For those of you that don't know me, Mike Wiehl. I drive this car you see down below me here in the weekly iRacing eNASCAR Cup Series. Most of you guys know me from my Wheel in the Sky aviation YouTube content, and when I'm not flying around and editing all those videos, I'm over here playing iRacing and streaming and talking about it. So, again, this came up kind of as the idea of a way to really go forward and have more discussion that I can't have when I'm racing in the live streams. It's just very hard to monitor the chat. It's always a lot of conversation that happens, so here's a way to actually sit down once a week and actually talk about those. We usually do these on Wednesday nights. Got moved to Thursday this week. Back on regular schedule will be on next Wednesday to talk about Las Vegas. So we'll welcome in our guest for the week, Mr. On the Go with CeeLo, joining us once again as our guest commentator for the day. It's good to have you. He streamed the Daytona 500. Ton of people in that live stream the other day, so that was really cool to see. And obviously, neither of our drivers fared very well in the Daytona 500.
Yeah, it was kind of disappointing. But hey, then he finished 15th on that last wreck. But that's how it goes.
Yeah,
our pick to win it. He had a bad day.
Yeah,
he crashed, and then bad things happened right after that. But that's usually what happens to you if you're at Daytona. So
right. I was got to a point in that race where obviously I picked Ryan Blaney was my guy, and I just kind of noticed. I was like, man, we're halfway, and he's been kind of lurking there, but haven't really heard from him. Like, usually I expect him to be out there leading laps and kind of showing up. And obviously at the start of the week, the Fords were super good, and I thought that was going to be indicative of where it was going to go, but that just wasn't quite the way it went. So it overall, though, I thought it was a good race. We'll jump into that. Actually, this is discussing the whole week that was the Daytona 500.
Yeah.
I'll start with qualifying on Wednesday. Alex Bowman wins the pole. 6th straight year he starts in the front row. It's become very apparent. There was somebody on Instagram that had posted a picture of really like the last 9 years of the Daytona 500, and there has been a Hendrick car there every year. So those guys come with speed to Daytona, but they don't ever seem to kind of be there at the end. Like they show up with qualifying speed. They have something going there in that engine package that makes those cars fast, but they're not there in the race. So
right.
kind of interesting.
It's that book that Jimmy Johnson always had, right?
Yeah.
How to win races in there. How to qualify first at Daytona. That's what he does.
It was interesting to see Jimmy Johnson racing against his old car, too. Like, I really didn't know what to expect. You're coming into a new team in a car he's never raced in before. He doesn't have Chad Canales in his corner anymore. Like, how's that all going to work out? And he did okay. I mean, all things considered, he was actually in it.
One of the, right at the beginning of the race, he climbed the highest. I think he went from last to 12th.
Yeah.
In the first stage. So he was moving. But,
right.
Stuff happened, but, that's how it goes.
He was definitely there. Yeah, Dallas, what's up, man? Good to, thanks for joining us. So, starting with, obviously that was Wednesday. Thursday we went into the duels, and it seemed so similar to almost kind of what you see every year with the duel races, where one of them is extremely unexciting, and the other one is just mayhem. So the first one, you kind of had 2 groups that tried 2 different pit strategies. It was pretty much single file the whole time. Right there, maybe the last lap, they tried to mix it up. Joey Logano comes away with the win in Duel 1. Duel 2, too wide. Cars getting wrecked. Suarez and Kyle Busch got together. He gets turned into the wall. Just mayhem everywhere. Almirola definitely seemed like your strongest car in that duel, though. Walks away with the win. Friday's race, the truck race, it kind of had what you expect from a truck race, I guess. Zane Smith wins the Craftsman Truck Series. It's Craftsman's brag. I like that. It's like going back to the way it used to be.
Yeah, right. No more grinder or whatever they call it. grander. I did one thing about Amarola after he won the dual race. He was like, "I'm not even supposed to be here."
Yeah.
That was the best.
Yeah.
Like he
he was supposed to retire.
Yeah. So that was fun.
Well,
watch those dual races. They were excited. They were the second, like you said, the second one had a lot more action. But I thought that the ending of the first one was a lot better than the ending of the second one.
I thought so too. Yeah,
me too.
I thought that there was a little bit more of guys trying to like kind of back up and get a run together, and it looked more like what you kind of expected that race to do. But the fact that they did it cleanly without wrecking, that's a little more entertaining to see than just the guys wadding cars up.
Right.
Yeah, so that was interesting. And then obviously Saturday, I thought that was probably the worst race of the weekend, just because the overtime rule and having to decide that on a photo finish of who was exactly where on the backstretch, a mile and a half away from the finish of the race. That was, and then it took a long time to decide.
That much?
Yeah, right.
It was about that much, right? On the bumper, on the front bumper, the 121, right?
Yeah, the Austin Hill was declared the winner of that, but I mean, John Hunter, Nemechek, and Justin Allgaier, they're all like right there, neck and neck, 3 wide. It was crazy to see how the 4 JRM cars were all lined up and poised like, okay, if all 4 of us go, one of us wins this race.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it. Like, they started racing each other and wrecking each other. It's like one of them flipped over, the one car flipped over there at the end, and it's like, what the hell, man?
I think all Daytona races should finish at night. It doesn't matter. From now on, all Daytona races finish at night or be a night race.
Having been at
a night race.
So I went to, that was always our summer trip, was to go to Daytona and see the Pepsi 400 back then. We went to that every year, and it was always on Saturday. It was early in the morning on Saturday.
10 a.m.
Yeah, and I remember going in 1997 when they announced that it was going to be a night race in 98, and we were all like, how? And then in 98, we went down for the race in July, but they had all the wildfires in Florida. They wound up canceling it, moving it to October, so we had to go back in October to finally see the race. And, I mean, I just remember being – Daytona probably to me is – I've been in awe of that racetrack for – that was the first racetrack I ever went to. I mean, that was it for me, I think that's really where it started. And to see them light that up and then just – I mean, the spectacle that it became was awesome. I'll never forget those cars the first time they even were on the pace lap going down the backstretch when they had that big grandstand back there, the flash bulbs, the whole, oh man, it was the coolest thing I ever saw. So
for sure,
man.
And those paint jobs are always cool with those lights. Flickering off it. Even Dallas was loving that 99 car, the Suarez car. She's in our chat.
Yeah.
That was her car. She loved that 99 car. So it's looking good too.
One thing I love about they've let them go back to it, and the 99 did it, the 20 did it, is the reflective numbers. NASCAR banned those for years, and some of the older cars, like in the 80s, they always had the reflective numbers. But now that they've let it come back, I just think they look so cool, especially at night. You just get that flash off of them with the lights. It just, super cool. And then Sunday, we haven't even talked about that yet. I actually was going back and looking at last week's show, and when I was talking about, how Denny Hamlin had mentioned who his top 5 would be if he were going to pick a top 5 in the last lap of the Daytona 500, he was almost spot on with that. And the one I said was William Byron's probably the only one I don't agree with. And then if I started naming off people that I would put in that, the first one I said was Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and I'm like, damn, I actually kind of was right there.
Yeah, you were close.
And then started thinking about that too. When we went last year to the 2022 race, I mean, he was up front a lot. He led a bunch, and then he got turned late in that race because he was positioned for it. So,
and it's funny how if you looked at who was running during the race, like the top 5 that finished in the top 5 last year were all there.
Yeah,
toward the end. Briscoe, Amarola, Cindric, Bubba was there, just for a little bit, but then
I was really surprised. I thought Kyle Busch. I was like, oh man, because Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon got together there late, and Keselowski and Chris Buescher were running together. They were leading a lot there towards the end, and that was another one I had mentioned. And I thought that there was something that could happen there. But then that last little run there, I think it was that was the second overtime or whatever in the Daytona 530.
Right.
So, like Travis Pastrana was up in there pushing the 23. The 23 had been in the wall early. He took the lead and got punted by Truex, bet the toe link, somehow managed to be back up in it there towards the end. And now you're seeing like all of these guys, and Denny was right there. Christopher Bell was in it, and it's like, man, a lot of guys.
Larson was right in the middle of it, too.
That's right,
Larson was right there, too. So, with Bubba, of course, he was leading when he got that bump from Truex.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he went to the back of the pack and then a lap down for, I would say,
a while a lap down.
A good 60% of the race, he was a lap down. And then come back. Him and Kyle were about a lap down for pretty good of a race there. And then for both of them to be back in it. And then, of course, Kyle leading the race.
Right.
And, of course, if it was 1998.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, geez, Kyle Busch just turned into every NASCAR fan that said, oh, there's too many rules. They stop changing everything.
Yeah.
Dallas says to tell you it's Oilers 6, Penguins 1 right now.
Nice. Got it. Nice. We got some hockey fans. They love the hockey, Trying to make hockey fans some racing fans, it's hard.
Yeah, man, you got to have a knack for this. You got to go to a race. That's how you become
That's right.
TV does not do it justice. You got to be there, and then even not just sitting watching. I mean, the one thing I love about being at the race is there's so many things that happen behind the scenes that you wouldn't see on TV, and especially if you follow one particular driver and you kind of see what they go through over the course of a race. That's not just in the top 5. It's pretty cool. So,
I think the 1-500 that Denny didn't win 2 years ago. I think he went from the back of the pack to the front of the pack, back to the back to the front of the. He passed like 120 cars that day. Again, every time he get to the front, he'd wreck, and then it's just how Daytona is. But I thought it was a great race. We had a good time on our stream. We had a lot of friends and a lot of NASCAR fans, which is always fun. And believe it or not, there was a lot. I couldn't believe how many there were, but there was a lot of Brad Keselowski fans in the chat.
Yeah.
There was a lot of Joey Logano fans in the chat.
Oh, wow.
Which is shocking.
Yeah.
And there was me and another guy that was cheering on Denny.
Oh,
yeah. But such a great race. And
Dallas, certainly not hating on hockey. We have nothing against hockey, but, we love us some racing, too.
Yeah, that's right.
Switch gears a little bit. The other side of the Daytona 500 was the iRacing Daytona 500 that I competed in Sunday morning on iRacing, and man, I'm still pissed off about it.
You should be.
I started 20th, just kind of played the game, and I was where I wanted to be. I was learning who I wanted to draft with. We had a good group of about 4 of us that felt real comfortable running with each other. We could get back where there was a few times where in a restart it would kind of shuffle out and you'd have a breakaway about 5-6 cars. We could line up and we could all push and catch those guys. So we knew what we had going. Coming into where we knew we had to make that last pit stop, I started working with one guy. We had it all set up, ready to go. Coming to, when we got to turn 3, he started running out of gas. And so he started sputtering, so I just went around him. Well, somebody wrecked on the other side of the racetrack, brought up the yellow, put me in the catbird seat, man. I walked away, came out of that, I pit, wound up being 6th after the pit, but I was the last car in the lead lap because of the way those pit stops cycled. I was able to get up front, and actually, I went and I looked at it, and the car I was running with, the number 16 car, he actually had a live stream on Twitch, so I went back and looked at it, and man, I made one mistake there at the end of that race where I was in front of him and he was pushing me. I started trying to dictate lines from the lead. I went up to the top to try to block the top line. They got a good run. They wound up pushing out of the way. I fell back, but I was like, all right, I'm just going to get in line right here. There's still 20 laps to go. Then we wound up getting taken out by a lap car, which car was 9 laps out, had no business being in the lead draft. But I went back and looked, and the 16 car actually wound up winning the race. So I'm like, man, that's cool for him. And I went and watched the end of his stream, so he was all pumped up and everything. And
You have to send me the link for that. I want to watch that. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. I mean, it was in some language I
Speaking
didn't
of running out
understand.
of
But
gas, not a lot of people maybe caught this, but Austin Hill, when he won the Xfinity race this weekend,
yeah, he ran out of gas
he ran out of gas.
trying to do the burnout. Yeah, that's funny.
So that's a difference of what, 2.5 miles
Right.
of gas, and could have made a difference of who could have won.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how gas is, trying to save gas at that track's not very good. But
And I mean, normally at Daytona, you're not really racing a few mileage race. Tires don't matter at Daytona. The way the cautions usually fall, I mean, I had done the math. It's 200 laps. You can make it about 40 laps on a fuel run. So if you put it at 40, 80, 120, 160, that gets you to the finish, assuming there's no overtime. We got a little off on that pit cycle, the way that they get a yellow fell, and I kind of had to pit with the leaders. I couldn't stay out, so I wound up being 20 laps short. But then the way that last caution, it all worked out perfectly. I had enough fuel to make it to the end. I just got wrecked, so it sucks, man. But it's kind of part of it. I'm looking forward to this week. Connor McDavid scored.
Whole different setup too. So
right? Yeah. Now this is. I mean, we say every year that all right, yeah, Daytona is what Daytona is, but this week is when the season really starts. This is where if you don't show up with a fast car in California, you're screwed. The next 3 weeks you have California, Las Vegas, Phoenix, 3 completely different types of racetracks that you can't just kind of limp your way through. For me, I'm a little concerned because the last few years I've done actually tried to run the season. I've run it in the fixed setup series. I'm going to do the full open setup series this year. So you got to do it for real. You got to actually make your car fast, and you got to make adjustments as the race goes on. So we'll see how it goes.
See, I would like to do something like that, but I have no clue on any of that.
I'll be honest, I'm not the greatest. I've learned enough about how I know what to do to a car in a race, like with either tire pressure or wedge adjustments to kind of make it where if I'm tight or if I'm loose, I can remedy that. But to build a setup from the ground up and make it fast, I have no idea how to do that. And I've been racing on sims for 20 years, so I just I've managed to be fast in kind of what they give you, but I'd love to have an actual crew chief in iRacing who kind of knew how to do that stuff and could manage it through a race. But yeah, that's a whole other thing. So
who do you think is going to win? What? Let's talk about let's say what team. So before we pick our drivers,
yeah,
who do you think you got?
I don't know. That's so last year Kyle Larson won. That was the first time we had run this package with the next gen car at Auto Club. So it felt almost like it was kind of a default win. I mean, Toyotas have been strong at Auto Club for the last 5-6 years. So I don't know. It's tough to say. I mean, now that the only other place that even kind of mirrors Auto Club, and it's pretty different, is Michigan, where, let's see, Kevin Harvick won that race last year. It's down to only one this year. So, I mean, maybe that'll be a little more indicative. But at the same time, Bubba Wallace finished second after qualifying on the pole, leading a lot of that race. I still think the Toyotas could be strong there again. Had Logano not held up Harvick or held up Bubba, and Harvick gotten off to such a big lead at the beginning of that race, I don't know. I don't know who I would say it would be, but
I'm gonna have to go Hendrick too. Count how many times Jimmy Johnson's won that race.
Yeah.
Or, look for him to be strong too. Some things you just don't forget and how to run good at the track.
Is he racing this weekend? I don't know if he's actually.
Oh, is he not racing?
I don't know if he's on the entry list or not. I haven't looked. I mean, it would make sense for him too. But how much beer did they sell on Sunday? Enough to kill an army. And
that was another thing that was funny. I asked in the chat, what kind of beer did everybody drink? And someone said Keystone Light. I was like, wow.
They still make that?
I was like, wow, okay. But yes, Dallas, they drink a lot of beer at.
All right.
But yeah, all right. So you did your team. Let me see your driver. What do you think?
Yeah. It'd be hard pressed to pick a driver. I really would. Whew. What's the odds? So the early odds were looking at Larson as the favored. Um, I feel like I want to go Ford ish. I don't know why. I'm just thinking like I feel like Brad Keselowski ran really well in this race last year. It's just such a unique one off race that, and this is it. This is it for Auto Club Speedway. So, what notebook are you taking in this, and who's prepared for that? I guess it's a little tough to decide on.
And we haven't really talked about the Toyotas much, but Truex Jr. looks like he's back.
Yeah.
To what he was. I mean, he was close last year getting the playoffs. But
yeah, if it weren't for so many winners
strong.
last year, he would have been a shoo-in for the playoffs. He was the points, or he didn't win the regular season championship, but he was the points leader of the guys who weren't in by a ton. And had it not been the number of winners, and then it just came down to him and Blaney, he would have been in. So,
right. It should be an interesting race.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to stream it this weekend on our channel. So,
oh, nice.
we're doing the same kind of hookup that we did last time. Seemed it was pretty good, but we'll try not to get any of the music that was played a couple times. It got me a little bit, but that's okay. We'll figure it out.
It's nothing you can do.
That's right. That's right.
All right, so the next thing we're going to do here, we move into every week we prime 3 topics to talk about, and we'll just kind of discuss those as we go through this. This week, we're going all about Auto Club Speedway with the move, obviously, of this being the final race at this current configuration of the racetrack. I posted earlier on my Facebook page earlier this week, there was an interesting article from NBCSports.com talking about, is this actually going to happen? Are we actually going to see this transition from the existing 2-mile track where they're going to start parceling off a lot of that land because it's extremely valuable land in the LA basin, and building a half-mile short track that's supposed to be a combination of Bristol and Martinsville? There's a lot of doubts if that's actually going to happen. They've already taken this race off of the 2024 schedule, to be determined where that goes. But to have the time to make this conversion, being the regulations that are the state of California, the opportunity for there to be no merit to building this, and rather than parceling off this entire piece of property, selling the whole thing, I mean, does this actually happen? Do we actually build this short track, and does racing return to the site of Auto Club Speedway, or does that not happen? And I got to tell you, after reading that article, I don't have a lot of confidence that this actually goes through. I mean, it's been delayed. This was supposed to happen in 2020 originally. It got pushed because obviously COVID and supply chain, all the things, and now we're at the point where this is it. We're gonna do one more last hurrah on the 2-mile track before we start making this conversion. Roger Penske built this track. It opened in 1997. The Penske name is what made it happen, and there was a lot that had to go into making that happen. And now this track is owned by NASCAR. Do they have the same clout? And here we are, 25 years down the road in an even more regulated environment. Does this really happen?
I don't want to hear the excuse from them. We don't have the time, but we sit there and watched them turn a football field into a track and back to a football field twice. So yeah. I don't want to hear about we don't have time. But is LA big enough for 2 NASCAR races 3 weeks apart or 4 weeks apart?
Right.
Maybe. Is it about 4 weeks?
Yeah. It was about a month ago was the Clash.
So do they have room for 2 big races like that back to back? I don't think so. Well, I think they want to keep. I think they think that they're going to keep the Clash and just build off of that.
I found it interesting that last year at the Clash they announced that it would be back in 2023. There's been no talk about doing it again next year. So, but there was during the week of the Clash, there was some conversation around this being becoming a points race, making what is the Clash now be a points race. Is that a thought to backfill this date that's going to be open at least next year.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I have a hard time really. I guess to me, like, I would love to see this track happen. Like, what they initially mapped out, or the idea for what this racetrack was going to be, where, like, what is the current pit road is basically going to be the backstretch. The track was going to be so small that there wasn't even going to be room in the infield for haulers. They were basically going to have a tunnel that goes out to the existing garage area, and that was going to be where all the hauler parking and everything would be.
That's
there's
smaller
like
than Bristol, then.
Yeah, there's a row of suites right behind pit road, and that was going to remain as what would be the backstretch on this new configuration of the racetrack.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
But there's been no real blueprint of it drawn. There hasn't been an actual official, like, this is what it's going to be. There's just been this idea and kind of rendering thing, but yeah, so...
Well, NASCAR is known for the just leaving these old tracks be, like Chicagoland. Like just kind of went away. Anybody talk about Chicagoland? No?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they're known for that, right?
But, Kentucky.
The question is, if they don't do that, like, who gets another race? Does Dover get their second race back? Does Nashville move to the super speedway, which would be kind of cold here?
Yeah.
For a second race. No, does Nashville keep 2 races? Do they keep 1? Do they keep none?
And I think, I mean, you would keep the West Coast swing intact because logistically, like, these next 3 weeks are Auto Club, Las Vegas, Phoenix. They keep the teams out west, so they're not having to run back and forth. I mean, years ago, that was kind of what we did. Is I believe it was they went to Daytona, then they would go out to California, and then they came back to Atlanta, and then went back out to Las Vegas. I mean, it just was a logistics nightmare for teams. So I think, I mean, I'd like to see this. I think there's an outcry for more short tracks. I would like to see that happen, but if there's not some type of groundbreaking and things start happening, like the track construction is happening in the next few months after this race completes this weekend, I seriously start questioning if it ever really happens and if we ever go back there. So
it's going to miss all those palm trees down the back stretch as they went down there.
And I love the track and the configuration it is right now. This is one of my favorite racetracks. It was built similar to what you see in Michigan, very similar layout to the racetrack, but they race so completely different, especially since Michigan got repaved 10 years ago. I mean, it is night and day racing there. You know, this is still the original asphalt at Auto Club Speedway, and it sucks. Oh, man. Remember, what was it, 2013, 2014, when they went to the Gen 6 car when we first started, and they were blowing tires left and right because they were bouncing down the backstretch so bad it was cutting tires. I mean, that would be... I hate to see a racetrack like this go away, but I understand why they're doing what they're doing. In the long run, I think they make a ton of money off selling off this land in the world that is Amazon. I mean, you look at Nashville Super Speedway. That race would not even exist. That track was for sale and was going to be demolished for 10 years until they took what was the layout for the quarter mile and the half mile flat tracks and the drag strip they had laid out in the back, sold all that off. That all became warehouse distribution. Amazon's running all their final mile stuff out of there. Yeah. They sold that off, and all of a sudden, this land's a lot more valuable now, and we can actually use this. And before you know it, we have a race here. We're going on our 3rd year of that. So there's potential. There's potential to make it good, but I don't know. I have my doubts that this ever actually happens. So.
Super Speedway's been hitting me up on my text messages.
Oh, they've been blowing me up, man. So, hey, let's talk about that. We just brought it up. What track would take over this date in 2024? We know for sure the story we're told right now is 2025, the short track comes back. Whether that's at the beginning of the season or however that works out, that's when it's supposed to happen. But there's an open date now in 2024. This is an ISC track. They're not going to give one of their races to SMI, so it's not going to be putting a second race back at Texas or Dover or any of those. It's going to be at one of NASCAR's own properties. But what do they have that they could... I don't really know where they would go.
Remember what they did 2 years ago? They did 2 weeks at Daytona.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a clash. It was a clash, and then it was...
Well, there was that 1 year, I believe it's Auto Club, they weren't, the state COVID restrictions, so they wound up doing the second week they ran the Daytona road course.
Yeah.
That was the thing.
Could happen. Could happen.
So, I don't know if... Here's my theory on this. I think with all the talks that came out last week going into Daytona about NASCAR shopping around the idea of doing another street course race in New York, Seattle, international, looking at Mexico or Canada, I would be willing to bet they shuffle some dates around on the 2024 schedule and try to make that happen. That would be, whether that's an existing track that maybe they move it to, where did the Xfinity Series ran at Montreal, I think it was, on the F1 track for years, or Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. If they move that later in the season where it's more in the summer, still this date, just moved up Phoenix and Las Vegas a couple weeks, maybe something like that happens. I think that ISC is going to hold this date. The only other tracks they have, I mean, they've got Chicagoland, which is sitting dormant right now, but they're not going to put a race there with the street course being in Chicago. If that continues into 2024, I don't see that happening. 7-1 Oilers, geez, man. That's commitment to keep watching. At this point in hockey, it's over.
I'm surprised when you said Canada, she didn't like pop up and say Canada.
I mean, Iowa Speedway, that's another track that NASCAR owns and is sitting dormant right now. They have nothing sanctioned, no sanctioned races there. Could that become that? I would love to see Iowa Speedway. I think that's a great racetrack. It's in a little bit of a weird market, but why not? I mean, let's do it. That would be a good spot.
We'll ever bring back? I know Junior has been a big fan of it and gotten some races out there, but you think they'd ever go back to North Wilkesboro?
I don't know. I'd be curious to see what happens with North Wilkesboro. I mean, the trucks have a sanctioned race there, leading up to the week of the All-Star race. There's still not enough infrastructure in North Wilkesboro to support like a Cup Series weekend. I think the All-Star race works, but maybe. The only thing, again, that's all being financed and managed by SMI. NASCAR's not going to give them a date. They're not going to give up one of their owned dates to their competitor.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's... Hang on. Let me move this over. Maybe now you can hear us. Turn that off. I forgot about the music. That's only supposed to be the introduction. It's not supposed to keep running. There we go.
Had to deal with that during the 500 stream, trying to make the stream hear the audio of the race plus me talk at the same time. Took forever, so it's hard sometimes.
Yeah,
on the fly.
That's what happens when you do things live, man. You learn as you go. So
that's right.
Yeah, that's another one. I mean, we won't get the 2024 schedule till the fall, so we won't know what's really going to happen there. But I'd like to see something. I'd like to see. Don't put another street course. Enough with the road courses.
Enough.
I'm fine with there being more than 2. You know, I'm okay with that, but it doesn't have to be 10. We don't need a third of the season to be the road courses and street courses. And I mean, I know you're trying to get to new markets, but there's plenty of existing racetracks out there that are good and that are built for purpose to host the Cup Series. Let's use those.
And you're just all you're doing is putting road course drivers in the playoffs that don't deserve to be there.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's as many like road course ringers as there used to be. I mean, you look at like Sonoma and Watkins Glen the last 10 years, it's been guys that are regulars in the Cup Series. But I mean, to that point, you have to be good at a road course now. Like you have to be, if you're going to be in the Cup Series, you have to be able to run well on road courses. I mean, that's part of it. So, all right, let's go into topic number 3 here. Has NASCAR failed in Southern California? Are they done? Have they experimented with this for the last? How do you get arrested? Were you the guy that jumped over the fence and tried to get Matt Kenseth's autograph? Is that how you almost got arrested in Watkins Glen?
I wouldn't put it past Sean. He's from New England, so. I wouldn't put it past them. You know how they like their alcohol up there.
Well, I mean, it'd be easy to drive on that track to make a wrong turn. It's so big. Half of it's in the woods. Like, oh, that looks like the way to get to the campground, and then next thing you know, you're on the track.
Well,
I'll give
I'll
you a
even
pass for that.
I'll even say during the clash when they showed signs, pictures of the audience. There was some people there with their racing stuff on, but I would probably say about 40% of the field of the crowd there was just wearing regular clothes. They
Yeah.
were just there. So do you think why wouldn't the California fans come out to this race as the first race of the year? There was lots of empty seats, so it can't be that there wasn't any tickets available.
Oh, right.
So I would say
Well,
yeah, there's not much. There's so much going on.
I take it even farther back, though. I mean, before we even talk about the Clash, before we even talk about Auto Club Speedway, the season finale was at Riverside, and that shut down. There's a mall on top of what used to be that racetrack, and even before that, you had Ontario Speedway. You have Irwindale that's out there. They do a lot of K&N stuff. They're like a local, smaller racetrack, and I think Irwindale does good for a local scene. But I don't know if you remember, they used to do. Hey, there we go. Got to subscribe. I like it.
Yeah, there we go.
I guess I feel like there's just not the market. Like when you think of like muscle cars and things like that, and kind of what was like the Southern California car culture that existed. I mean, the NHRA still runs in Pomona. That's their grounds. But I think they've tried so many different things. Riverside, I don't know if you've ever looked at that old Riverside road course that they did. It's a crazy racetrack, man. It was like half of it was dirt, and like guys are just running through the dirt all the time. And then there was like one turn that actually had a wall. It was a nuts racetrack, but the cars were completely different. And same thing, that land became so valuable that they sold. And the only reason the land to build Auto Club Speedway even existed is because it's on a Superfund site. It was an old chemical factory. Like the big water tower in the middle of the track is kind of the last remnant of what was the factory. But that was like, you can't build houses on it because of the environmental disaster that is that piece of property. So,
Sean, how many times did you go to Watkins Glen? How many times did you go? I've always kind of wanted to go to a road course because you're up and close. Those stands are in different spots of the field. You and I were even talking at Daytona. It would be cool to sit right here on this stand right here because we're walking through the infields and stuff. It would be so cool. Just cars riding by you right there. So
even the way we've done the Daytona like Friday, Saturday, where we just kind of walk around the infield and go to different spots and watch from there. That's kind of a fun way to do it, I think. And that's how I feel like road courses are not about buying a ticket and sitting in the stands. There's no way I would ever do that. If I went to the Indy road course, I would 1,000% be all over the infield because there's a ton of places you can go see different things. So, I probably one of the coolest road courses, honestly, is Sonoma because it's all built into a hill. So you can stand anywhere around that racetrack and kind of see the whole thing. It's kind of interesting.
Another California race. I mean, that's 3 California races if they keep this up. That's a lot. That's a lot.
How
many other states have 3 races? How many states have 3 races?
Florida.
Yeah. Daytona.
Used to be North Carolina had like 8.
Yeah, and 2 in Homestead. Yeah, you're right. But 3 different. I'm talking like 3 different tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking 3 different tracks. I mean, at least Homestead's twice. But
well, back when you had Charlotte, North Wilkesboro, and Rockingham, and all of those had 2 dates a year, that was 6 races in North Carolina alone. So
but that was like the epicenter of NASCAR. Back then.
Right.
You talked about NASCAR, you thought North Carolina. Just
and then Darlington is equally as far. Martinsville's equally as far, but that's interesting. Been to every track. Sean said he's been to every track at least 3 times, man. That's something like I've tried to collect as many as I can. I've probably been to about 15 of them. One of the things I love to do is I travel a lot for work. I love to try to catch them flying over them. My most recent one I caught was Phoenix. I flew over that. So
I've been to Daytona. I've been to Martinsville. I've been to Bristol. I've been to Nashville.
Oh, man.
I think that's about it.
Let's see. Daytona, Darlington, Talladega, Atlanta, Charlotte, Richmond,
Oh,
Dover,
Charlotte. Forgot about Charlotte. Yeah.
Bristol, Nashville, um, Phoenix, Las Vegas, California.
I technically wasn't there for a race at Phoenix. I was
Yeah,
just there.
I
Does that
think
count?
that's about my list. Rockingham. I went to a race in Rockingham once before that was gone. Yeah, so I mean, I've had a few. I've never been to Martinsville. That's one I'd like to do. That'd be cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It
So
is fun. But yeah, it should be an interesting season this year. I know we kind of talked about, I think the first time we were talking about the season coming up.
yeah,
Any still thoughts on maybe who you think is going to pretty much, or is it going to be like last year? There's going to be like 16 different winners.
I don't think we see that. I think that the car was so new. There were so many things that were unique about the new car, the new everything, that was what it was really hard to get. I mean, we went pretty far into the season before we had a repeat winner.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that you'll see that happen again. I think you're going to see, I mean, I would say we get 12 by the playoff cutoff. I don't know that we'll get 16, but 12 is realistic. I think that there's a few more teams now that are extremely competitive, on top of teams that already were competitive. So I think right off the bat, like Kyle Busch being in the 8. Well, the 8 car was good last year. Now you've got Kyle Busch there. You've got Reddick in the 45. I think he wins in the 45 car. Obviously, Denny, Joey, they're contenders. But I think of the guys that didn't win last year, Blaney, Keselowski, Truex, all of them win at some point
Mm-hmm.
before the
Yeah.
playoff cutoff. So, but I don't think you'll see, some of the names we expect. I think William Byron, he got that win at Martinsville early last year. I don't know if he's going to show up as strong as everybody's expecting. I have
Mm-hmm.
my doubts about Kevin Harvick. I don't know about that. So,
I think you're going to see Harvick win one. Just
I mean,
to get him in the
I'd like
playoffs.
to, but I don't know. I just don't know. I think one other thing to consider. My wife's a big Flames fan. Flames are,
Calgary.
Flames are beating the Golden Knights right now, 1-0.
Nice. Hey, the Knights are good too.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's tough to say I could pick a championship contender right now. Honestly, I think it's so early in the season.
I mean, man, like you were saying, like Byron, does Bowman win any? I mean,
Yeah.
you're really kind of depleting half of the Hendrick field
Oh,
already.
Chase
I
Elliott's
mean,
going to win 6 races. I'm not worried about
yeah,
that. Bowman,
yeah.
Bowman could get a win. Bowman can win. I think, but it's not going to be. When he won Vegas last year. He's been good at Vegas though. So when we're doing the
You
same show in a week,
about Trackhouse? Do you see a dominance of Trackhouse like last year,
I don't
or
know that I'd say dominance, but Chastain's going to win some races.
yeah,
They made it to Championship 4 and damn near about put it in there. So
yeah, true. Suarez in Dallas's teal
Suarez,
car.
yeah, he's only in that for a handful of races, so he'll
Yeah.
definitely be in that in Nashville.
Hey,
Suarez,
Kyle. How about Kyle?
oh, Kyle's going to win. Yeah, that's no question. Suarez, I would say I mean, he won Sonoma last year. Just contract extension. He just got that done. I'd say he wins. I would think so. I still don't have a winner for this weekend. I've got the weekend preview slide up here for the Pala Casino 400. No
There you
idea
go.
who's going to win this weekend. I'll just say that
The
we
Pala Casino.
yeah. I've been there. I played in a poker tournament at the Pala Casino one time.
Where is the Pala? Is that on the strip? Where is it?
No, the Pala Casino is in it's
Henderson?
no,
Was
it's
it?
not. It's in California.
Oh, okay.
It's
Las
like
Vegas,
between
right?
it's between LA and San Diego, kind of going down the 15.
Yeah,
I can't remember the name of the little town it's in.
Pala Casino 400. So it should be a little different. Starts later in the afternoon, right? Well, 12 o'clock out there.
Yeah,
But on the East Coast or West, it's about 2:30 afternoon.
all about car setup. Absolutely, you have to have a fast car here. You have to have a fast car that can handle how rough that track is. And tire wear, they're absolutely going to have issues with tire wear. Yeah.
Is it worse than Atlanta from years past?
Oh, yeah. It's pretty similar at this point. I mean, you're talking 25-year-old surface that has just been beat to hell. The only difference between there is you don't get the major hot and cold swings and snow in Fontana like you do in Atlanta. that track was more weathered. And the worst part about the old Atlanta was the seams, where they had just tried to seal coat and patch those seams. They were a mess, man. But
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of it's a little bittersweet that this will be the last time we race at this racetrack. I think I used to go to this race when they moved it there for Labor Day weekend when they took that away from Darlington. It was convenient because I had just moved out west and lived in Las Vegas, so now I still had my Labor Day weekend race. Was very local to me, so I was there for Kyle Busch's first win
Mm-hmm.
back in 2005, I believe it was. Loved going to this racetrack. A lot of fun. I enjoyed this racetrack. Um, but yeah, I remember just watching the crowds dwindle. The first year I went in 2005, it was packed. I mean, I forget what they said those stands held, 70,000, something like that. Wall to wall, packed in. Couldn't find a seat. The last time I went to a race there was 2010. Yeah, well, I could have walked in and bought a seat that day. And the crowds have kind of come and gone. A few years ago, it sold out. They were selling out again. They've reduced the seats now. They've taken seats out of the turn 4 and turn 1 side of the track. I think that was all part of this reconfiguration effort that they were going to have to do that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But easily, I think last year half the crowd, not as much capacity. So
So they're doing kind of what they did to Bristol. They're taking out the ends. Is that what you said?
yeah. So I mean, it's I think that this race where they started to struggle with this race is they started moving it around too much. They had it at the beginning of the season, and then they had a second race. They started moving that second race. They tried to put it in the playoffs, tried to put it out, tried to do all these things. The best thing they did is this used to be a 500-mile race. They reduced it to 400, went back to single day. COVID kind of killed that. They had a couple of years there. They didn't run this racetrack because of California and all the things. Um, I still like this racetrack. I think it's one of the better racetracks. It puts on a hell of a show. Um, yeah, it's going to be a shame to see because this is it. It was this in Michigan. We're the only two tracks of this configuration. Um, so it'll be sad to see it go. I personally hope that the short track version of this comes back. That we do something different, but we'll see what happens. So.
Sean was talking about setup. So, but in with the NASCAR rules, all the cars have to be the same, right? So,
Well, the
is
the
there
parts have to
other
be the same,
tweaks?
but what you do underneath of that chassis is what makes you fast. I mean, exactly what he said. It's about your stagger, it's about your springs, and you got to know how to drive that. So
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to find as many aero advantages now. I'm sure there's still little corners they're finding, but to do things to the body, to do things, I mean, the way it's about the way you weight the car, and just, I mean, you got to have a hot rod here. The only real areas on the outside that you have any flex in the body anymore are kind of the angle of the diffuser, which does help with downforce. You can change that a little bit, but it doesn't give you much. I can't remember. I don't think this car has a ride height rule anymore. There used to be a minimum ride height. They got away from that, but that's what was causing all those tire blowouts last year, where we kept seeing guys blowing tires like in the towards the end of the season. What was it? Texas, ton of blowouts at the fall Texas race, but that was all because of ride height. And everybody wanted to blame Goodyear. Oh, you're bringing bad tires. No, it's the ride height. That's what these guys are driving. So.
And you won't see anybody putting clear tape on their front bumper
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah, you're not going to be bump drafting here. So um, I'm going to run this race. The iRacing version of this is only about 100 laps. They do 50% for the majority of races, which still is it's a lot on this racetrack. But I get excited on this racetrack because I love running the wall here. It's just that's my way to get around this track. So I'm excited to actually go out there and just wall ride. So I got to get some practice in tomorrow. I've never actually driven this car on this racetrack, so.
Should
Um,
be fun.
I'm going to try to run it, I think, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central is when it goes live. So I think tomorrow will be the night I do it. If not, I'll do it Sunday morning.
Are you gonna do? Is trucks out here too as well, or
Uh, I think it's just the Xfinity series. The trucks have this week
Xfinity?
off. So,
Okay.
and I have found that the Xfinity races out here for the last 10 years have been boring as hell. It's just, it seems like it's one car gets out and that's it, They're just not producing as much moments to me.
Maybe it's after Daytona, all these Xfinity cars that don't have much money can't afford to wreck another car, so they're like,
right.
all right, we're gonna ease up a little bit.
But I mean, even that, it comes down to, because what are there? There's not many competitive Xfinity teams, I guess, or they're satellites to existing teams. Those are the guys that really do good. Yeah, dirt drivers, they do very well here because it is like dirt tracking around the outside of this racetrack. So, yeah, we talked a little bit earlier. Kyle Larson, I think, will be a contender. He's going to have something to say about this race. He did really well last year, but I think now that so many more people have reps in this car, we talked earlier too. Harvick won at Michigan, kind of the sister track. I ran a Cup car at Las Vegas in 2011. I ran about 20 laps, doing the Richard Petty deal, but it was kind of cool because I knew kind of got the hookup on it. Friend of a friend got us in there, so working with the instructor, they speed restrict you on those things where all they really do is like they'll get you up to a certain speed on the straightaway, slow you down going in the corner, then they let you speed up coming off the corner so you feel kind of getting pushed down in the seat. That dude we were going, man. We were passing other cars. We were going so fast.
Yeah, I've never done anything like that. I've never done anything like that. That'd be interesting to do, though.
I'll tell you, man. You sit in one of those cars for, I did 20 laps, and I mean that wasn't even like getting it. That was just riding. It gets hot. It gets hot, and man,
I bet.
And that was in December when I did it, so it was relatively cool out. But dude, like,
and another thing I noticed, some stuff talking about hot. I listened to this, or I was listening to the stream, the race. They said that they have now made it mandatory for all drivers to have the head cover now.
Oh, really? Oh,
over their head.
Yeah,
it's mandatory now, where some didn't have to. But now you have to, because Bubba, they were showing Bubba, and you could see it like right about through here on his helmet. And he was like, oh, that's another new thing for safety this year. All drivers, mandatory, that they have to wear the cover over their head. So comes summertime when it's, some of those guys are not used to that, might make a difference there.
I don't know if you remember. So, I mean, they've had the cool hose that goes in the back of the helmet. They've had that for years now. But a lot more of these guys are running the cool suits where – it's basically running cool water through to keep you cooled off inside the fire suit and do it decent. So, 180. I think my fastest lap, I have to look at it. I actually have it on a plaque right on the wall behind me. I think my fastest lap was 162 at Las Vegas. So, 180's cooking it, man.
Especially through that dog leg, Charlotte. Yeah, man, you feel it pretty good, I bet.
But I believe it was the Indy Road Course last year where AJ Allmendinger, he was complaining because his cool suit was not working. That thing, like, and if it's not working, you just have yourself wrapped in a plastic bag basically. So now all the heat you're generating is not. There's no way to release it. I don't think I've ever seen somebody that angry in a car. So
I bet.
Man.
Any last words on Daytona? We'll finish up Daytona. Any last words on Daytona?
I think I'm going to go to the 500 next year. That's my last words on it. I think I
like to hear that.
Yeah. It was funny. In the middle of the race, my daughter started asking me, she's like, can I go to the Daytona 500? I want to go. And I was like, well, let's look. When is it next year? And I was like, oh, man, you guys have school off that. We might have to go to Daytona next year. So
there you go.
So we'll see.
I like it.
I'm thinking I'll get back on my 4-year schedule. I said every 4 years. I had to skip it in 2020, obviously, because I was traveling to Orlando, and I even could have gone because the race wound up getting rain delayed till Monday. I landed in Orlando. I was watching the restart of the race when I landed, and me and my buddy were talking about, let's jump in the car and go. But we didn't go. We wound up watching from a bar there in Orlando, which is probably good because that was the Ryan Newman. Like, we all thought he was dead at the end of the race.
Yeah. And people still blame Denny for.
Denny didn't do anything. He had nothing to do with it.
I know, but they were blaming him.
It was a bad bump from Blaney that caused the whole thing to begin with. But whatever. I mean, you're racing the Daytona 500. You don't live.
Daytona was great race. I'm sure a lot of drivers learned a lot. But good to see Austin Dillon. I don't know if you heard Austin Dillon. Of course, our thoughts on Austin Dillon, but Austin Dillon said that he was going to push Kyle and he wasn't going to make a move.
Yeah, bullshit.
He said I was going to give him the 500. He said bullshit.
Yeah, they all say that until you realize
Right.
you can make the move coming off 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
I've
Austin
had
said to
plenty
blame
of people on
him.
iRacing telling me that they're not going to make a move, and
Yeah, exactly.
so yeah, I
Great
think
podcast. Great show.
I'll be excited to see. I always like seeing what happens when we go to Talladega. Do we replicate Daytona, or do we see a completely different thing? Yeah,
I'm sure you'll see the same guys that were in the top there running in Talladega as well.
You know who? There was one I wanted to mention who didn't really show up at all at Daytona was Eric Jones, because lately he's been really good on the
He had
plate
a wreck,
tracks.
didn't he? Didn't he get
Oh,
involved in
did
that
he?
wreck?
Oh, maybe he did get in that one that was about halfway through, I guess, that Reddick was in. Yeah,
he was up there for just a little. Eric Jones was up there in that 43 because I remember they were talking about Guns N' Roses and they played some guy like mute. But so I mean I think he was involved in that wreck. But my disappointment for the 500, I was trying to think. Man, pretty much everybody that. I really can't. Trying to think one of the Joe Gibbs racing cars, but they were all up front. Christopher Bell was, Denny was, Truex was.
Yeah.
Of course, not running the 18. I think Reddick learned a lot in that 54 car. So
Gibbs in the 54.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Gibbs. Reddick learned in the 45. So I was getting those guys mixed up all race.
Yeah.
The 45 and the 54, I was getting those guys mixed up all race. But I don't. Man, I can't. I was about to say one of the drivers, but now I can't even think of who it would be.
Sean, I remember
but
that.
I would think it would be. I think it would be Joe Gibbs Racing in general at the 500.
I'll tell you, 2311. Denny said on his podcast that 2311 only brought one backup car for all 3 of their cars they were running, and those cars cost $300,000 to produce and put on track. They wrecked all 4 of them. That is a $1.2 million week for 2311. I bet Denny's pissed. I haven't listened to his podcast this week yet, but I bet he's not in the best of moods right now.
He actually did that at like 1:00 in the morning on Monday. Well, he got home and they did it right after
Sunday night into Monday morning.
Yeah, so it should be. I'm going to listen to that too as well.
Yeah.
But, Sean said he was at the ARCA race when Kerry Earnhardt and Alexander got killed.
I remember that. Yeah, Kerry Earnhardt didn't get killed, but he's still alive. He's still kicking.
Didn't he go after somebody in the pits after the race? Who was that? Earnhart went after somebody.
Oh, that was Jeffrey Earnhardt.
Jeffrey Earnhardt, yeah, he went after somebody.
Yeah. I saw that the other day. I forget. He got because it was Parker Kligerman. He just gave him a bad push and turned him or something there coming towards the end of that race.
Yeah.
And he wasn't happy about it, but.
Yep.
And I forget. I believe Jeffrey is Kerry's son, if I have that right. But yeah, he's trying to rebuild a career there, man. He's been around for a long time racing. He's been in the Xfinity Series a lot. Last year he ran a 3-car at Talladega and was leading. I think he wound up finishing 2nd or 3rd. Like he got his name back out there and kind of he's got a full-time ride this year. So yeah, it'd be cool to see any Earnhardt do good.
And it's also different, like when you're watching the ARCA races or you watch the truck race on Friday night, you're like, I don't know any of these guys. The only guy I knew in that lineup in that truck race was DeBenevetto.
Yeah.
He's still there in the truck race. Poor guy. He never got a chance. I mean, they've given him chances, but never had that big chance,
Man, it was funny in the ARCA race. They had Frankie Muniz ran it, and the amount of times, like if he got in a 3 wide, they just could not wait to say Malcolm in the middle. It was funny, but yeah, it was cool. It was. I mean, I thought it was a good weekend, but yeah, I'm excited. For me, this is where at least Auto Club and Las Vegas. These are 2 of my favorite races. Obviously, I lived in Las Vegas for 10 years, parked at this racetrack for every race weekend they had. I miss being that close to it. Auto Club was 4 hours away, so went to races there. Phoenix, I went to races there. I don't care for Phoenix as much. Definitely in the new configuration. But, this is that we start getting these weekends through this part of the season that I'm excited about. Atlanta's coming up. I still don't know how I feel about the new Atlanta, but I'm going to go. If I can make it happen that weekend, I'm going to go to that race. So, yeah.
Sounds good. Great show.
Yeah,
Great
this
show.
is fun. I mean, it took us about an hour, but hey, I mean, it's good discussion.
For sure.
Yeah, maybe that's where we'll leave it off. So we do this normally on Wednesday nights. I've moved it back an hour. We're going to do these every Wednesday at 9 o'clock Eastern, just to have a little more time to get these prepped and set up. This is a lot of fun. Obviously, having you guys in the chat and helping kind of contribute to the conversation. That's the whole point of this. Like I said, when I'm doing race streams, it's just really hard to be in conversation because I'm trying to drive a race car and it's hard to focus on the chat until we get some yellows or pits or something. So.
And he doesn't hear me yelling, going, "Go, go, go, go!"
Yeah, I don't have you
Oh,
on
you missed
the
your
mic.
opportunity.
But yeah, so we'll be doing these every week throughout the whole season. A lot of just enjoy discussing all this. Thanks you guys for subscribing. Don't forget to join us here. Again, I'm going to try to race tomorrow night, so if you have some time, come watch us. We'll be doing a live stream of the race from inside the car. It's a lot more fun that way. I'll have the MyPilotPro title sponsor on the car this weekend for the Race at Auto Club. They are probably one of my title sponsors that I use for all of my aviation content. There's a link down here in the description here on YouTube where you can go buy your own mounts. I have to give a shout out to them on every one of these because they pay me every time I do. No, I'm just kidding. It's actually it's a local distributor that he's a good friend of mine. I've met with him every year at Oshkosh. He makes these things himself. He does his own Haas CNC printing of these, and I just think it's cool to support him. So really, that's what it's all about. So we'll call it a night. Chris, thanks for joining us again. It's been a good discussion.
Yes, all right.
I gotta get some water. It's been an hour of talking straight. So thanks everybody. We'll see you
know
guys
how
on the next one.
See you guys.
I always get called an auctioneer when I'm talking too much.
Yeah, right.
Bye, guys.